As we're still a few weeks away from the first UFC event on Paramount for UFC 324 on January 24th, we're going to start to see a lot of outraged Canadians in the next couple weeks when they realize that the Paramount deal only relates to US customers and not in Canada, because of course in Canada, we have the exclusive rights with Sportsnet as they sign their deal in 2024. So even though we get Paramount here in Canada, you're still going to have to pay for marquee UFC events. And a lot of Canadians are upset with this. And I just noticed on Reddit today that there's a petition on here. So far, only 124 signatures, but it says stop the Canadian UFC tax, demand for fair streaming for UFC fans in Canada. And I think people are slowly realizing this. Now, when the deal was first announced with Paramount, I knew that this did not matter to Canada. I've worked in the television industry. I'm very familiar with how streaming rights and TV rights go. It's based off the region. So like it mentions here in this petition, it said, little did I know that Canadian fans would specifically be excluded from the new era, while fans in the United States, Brazil, Australia, and through Latin America are now enjoying every UFC event, included in their standard subscription. Canadians have been left behind, trapped in the exact same expensive, outdated pay-per-view system as the rest of the world. So there's two sides of this that I kind of understand. The first side is a deal's a deal. The UFC made this deal in 2024, and we didn't know what the future of the UFC was going to look like. I think a lot of people, when this deal was signed, probably figured that pay-per-views are going to be sticking around forever, but the UFC decided to change that when they signed with Paramount. So as a result, $79.99 is still going to be charged for Canadians watching the event. And from that angle, I understand it. People have to understand, Sportsnet's not just going to go out there and say, oh, we're going to change the terms of our deal, so we're going to get less money. I'm sure, Sportsnet, part of the deal was that you had to go through them to buy their pay-per-views and they get more money. So I'm sure that's part of it. So I understand Sportsnet's perspective on this, but at the same time, and again, you're going to see more of this in the coming weeks when I think there's still a lot of Canadians out there who don't realize that you're going to have to pay for the pay-per-views. You're going to be encouraging people to pirate events. And this was already a thing even before the UFC went to Paramount. We saw that there was a lot of people, and I think even people watching this video right now, a lot of them do not pay to watch the pay-per-views. They find links, and I know Dana White shut down one of the biggest free streaming apps that's out there, but there's still ways to watch UFC pay-per-views. But I think this is something that honestly Sportsnet should be trying to fix at some point here, because not that I think this petition is going to do anything. I appreciate their efforts, and I don't blame them, frankly, for being outraged. But I think if you're Sportsnet, you got to at least acknowledge something about the situation, because think about it. Like we just read here in the post, all these other countries are going to be able to watch the UFC for free as part of their subscription, whereas all the Canadians here are going to have to pay the $80 a month, which is pretty expensive, actually, with that as well. So this petition also mentions it's a double standard. TKO Group has already proven they can fix this. They successfully moved WWE, Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. I don't know if this is a TKO thing they can do. I think this has to do with Sportsnet, and I wonder, would TKO have to compensate Sportsnet for not having pay-per-views, because I think that was part of the initial deal. Now, here's the tricky part. If it says UFC returning to Sportsnet with multi-year deal starting in 2024, this is back in 2023. All it says is there's a multi-year contract. There's no actual timeline that I'm aware of, and I've not heard it publicly mentioned how long the TV deal is with Sportsnet. Again, this is from the press release in 2023. It just says multi-year deal. We do have some feedback from Reddit as people are sort of chiming in here. It says Canadians are being charged 700% more than Americans for 2026. Sign here to demand TKO Group and the blackout. Like, I think this is a Sportsnet thing too. They would have to figure this out. I guess the thing that I think where Sportsnet could help themselves a little bit here is just addressing this issue, because they've kind of ignored it. CBC had an article, this was back a little while ago, saying that things would be the same. So people wondering, like, James, I don't know what you're talking about. Here's a CBC article from back in August. CBC reached out to Sportsnet and said that basically everything's going to be the same. Let me find the, let's see here. Canadians can subscribe to Paramount starting at $6.99 a month for the standard plan. It's unclear whether they'll be able to watch UFC fights on the platform. Sportsnet has held exclusive rights to UFC fight nights and pay-per-view preliminary events and the reality series The Ultimate Fighter since 2024. There was something down here that they reached out to Sportsnet. Let me find that quote in here real quick. Spokesman, that's what I'm looking for. A spokesman for Rogers, Sportsnet, which is the company that owns Sportsnet, told CBC News that the Paramount deal won't change anything for Canadian viewers. Like, that's a tough pill to swallow, as again, like, you see the rising costs and ticket prices and everything else. Like, this is going to encourage people to pirate, I think, which is not really what I think the UFC wants, but I think they do need to figure this out. Like, I don't think the Canadians are just going to get the same deal as the US. And again, if you try and watch, like, first off, you can't even get the Paramount app in Canada, as far as I know. If you know what, I'd even check it out right now. If I go to the Google Play Store here in Canada, I don't even think you can get like the streaming app for Paramount right now, right? I guess you can, but I don't think, again, there's going to be, like, you're not going to be able to watch UFC on here, even if you do install it. So I guess you can get the app, but you're not going to get the same things sort of happening here. So that's something to kind of consider as well. But you look at some of the comments here, people joking around that they're basically still streaming here. Let's see, what else? There was someone here. I'm Canadian. I spent $0. Who pays for the UFC pay-per-view? So a lot of people just admitting to streaming, and of course they're anonymous on here, so they can get away with it. This guy says, what's weird to me is top journalists like Ariel Helwani and Aaron Bronstetter can't even give us a timeline of when the Sportsnet deal with the UFC is over, especially Aaron, who I think is amazing, but actually works for Sportsnet. He does work for Sportsnet. Probably can't legally speak on it. I think it would be good at the very least just for Sportsnet to come out and say this is how long the deal is, because fans are going to be happy. Like, you have all these other fans who don't have to pay anything or pay a very small amount, what, $7 US a month. I think Canadian, that's what, maybe like $12 or $13 a month Canadian, and then we're gonna have to pay $80. I also wonder, like, this money must go directly to Sportsnet, because, like, where is this extra money going to, right? The UFC's not taking it. They got all that in the Paramount deal. People saying paying in $1. This guy, chimes back and says this petition is stupid. No amount of signatures will cause the broadcasting rights deal in Canada to expire sooner. Paramount has already made it clear they plan on acquiring the rights in other countries. There's nothing to do but be patient until the Canada deal is up. So yeah, this guy going a little bit hard there as well. I would gladly pay monthly to watch UFC if they had a decent app that covered every event. Until then, we'll sail the seas. The pay-per-view model is insane. I totally agree on that, by the way. Pay-per-view model is dead. Like, it just doesn't work. So I think the last deal with the TSN deal, which TSN held the Sportsnet right previously, it was a number of years. I want to say it was like 5 or 6 years. They kept renewing the deal. That was the thing, but I think it was like 3 or 4 years at a time. So it is unclear at the time I'm doing this video of like when the deal expires, right? So this guy kind of makes sense. What do you want the UFC to do? Re-engage with their deal on Sportsnet. I think at the very least, Sportsnet should just be transparent that no, everything's still the same. They might get a lot of feedback, but I just don't think there's been any clarification about this from Sportsnet. Like, the fact that the CBC had to do a story and ask a spokesperson, I don't think is good business here for Sportsnet personally. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this all unfolds. I always buy the pay-per-views. I have to for my job. I can write it off at the end of the year for tax purposes, but still, that's $80 a month I don't really want to be paying for these pay-per-views, because I don't get the money back. I don't even get the full money back. I just write off part of it for my taxes. So yeah, see, and I think there's going to be more of this. I think there's Canadians right now, and that's part of the reason why I'm doing this video. I think there's Canadian fans out there going, oh, what do you mean? Well, I get Paramount Plus in Canada. I just showed you can install the app, but they're going to realize, I know there's going to be people that have installed Paramount, and they're going to try and watch UFC 324 on there, and it's not going to work for them. So this is this is a tough thing. And again, I see both sides of it. Like, you signed a deal in 2024. Why should that deal all of a sudden change? But also, the pay-per-view model's dead, and you're going to have a bunch of fans in Canada who are going to be outraged, and you're going to, encourage people to have, VPNs. Like, I don't know. There's probably going to be some way around this, I would imagine, with a VPN or something along those lines. That would be, interesting. So, yeah, this person's right here. It's not TKO ripping people off. It's Sportsnet. They would have to figure it out. So, yeah. We'll see what happens, but something to keep an eye on. Again, a lot of Americans watching this probably don't even care, probably even made it this far to the end of the video. But what I will say is this is something you will notice more of, because there are a lot of Canadian UFC fans who buy the pay-per-views, who watch the events, and this is going to be tough. Like it says right here, $80 a month compared to $6.99 for Americans. That's going to be a really tough sell for a lot of UFC fans here. So, like I said, at the very least, I just like Sportsnet to come out and say, hey, listen, this is how long the deal's going. sorry, we know you guys are frustrated. Like, just have some empathy for the fans that are paying customers of your product. I've actually never bought the pay-per-views through Sportsnet. I bought it through Fight Pass. So I'm actually curious to see if I'm still able to do that in a couple weeks for that pay-per-view. So I'm very interested by that. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on this? Or any of you, is this new news to you? I'm curious how many people are actually aware. I've talked about this on my live streams, but I still get people asking me questions like, what's going on with the Paramount deal? The reality is Sportsnet owns the TV rights in Canada and the exclusive rights, period. Paramount has nothing to do with Canadians. It just doesn't. So kind of like the thumbnail says. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.